Hello there, Internet of 2018. Welcome to Camera Dad's episode number 11. I am one of your hosts, Mr. Phil Ringsmooth, and on the other side of the screen with me, I have my brother and co-host, Mr. Simon. How you doing, Simon?
Hey, Phil, I can't believe this is our 11th show. That's pretty cool.
It is. For those of you wondering, we've taken a little bit of time off. This would normally be about our 12th or 13th show, I guess, if we're going once a month, but we kind of took November and December off just to spend some time with the family and just put this aside for a little bit.
Yeah, that's the thing about that. Phil and I are learning as we go. When you want to do a podcast and you've each got kids at home, it's difficult to schedule. And we jump through a lot of hoops to make it every month, like on a regular basis. Phil and I have decided to tone it back a little bit. And basically, we're going to put on an episode when it fits our schedule. And hopefully, maybe once a month. It might be every 2 months. But if you subscribe to us on YouTube or if you subscribe to the podcast, it will just show up when it's ready. So bear with us, folks. And we'll give you the best parent-based camera podcast that we possibly can. So
as often as it makes sense, as often as we're able to do it.
Exactly, as often as we can. So there you go.
So so welcome back. It's good to be back and be at this again. So what are we doing tonight for our 11th episode, Simon?
I'm glad you asked, Phil. Tonight's show is all about the general topic of family photos, and we'll see where that takes us. We're probably going to talk about whether Phil and I get family photos and what we look for when we're getting family photos. We'll talk about how important it is to take formal family photos versus candids, like why you would pay the money for that or why not. So we're just going to talk about anything involving getting formal family pictures. So we'll kind of see where that takes us. And Phil, between the two of us, you actually get family photos taken on a somewhat regular basis, don't you?
About as somewhat regular as this podcast comes out, yeah.
Okay.
We try to do family photos about once a year. That's kind of
that's a good amount of time.
Our ballpark. With the kids, it's become important that we do at their birthday, give or take. With the baby, it'd be at 6 months and then a year, and then we try to do it again, at 2 years and 3 years. But it's not. 2 out of our 3 kids have birthdays right at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say that we kind of do it annually, well, our third kid kind of screwed that up because she's a summer baby, and the other 2 are, at the end of the year. But
I guess as long as you have some sort of schedule, like maybe you can compromise and do them every March, and then you're between all the birthdays.
But the idea is that we just go and we do them professionally. I've mentioned a place on this podcast before called Portrait Innovations, and I forgot to find out if they're just a Lincoln, Nebraska thing, or if they're a chain that is all over the country. I'm not sure, but there's 1 or 2 of them here in Lincoln, and we've been going to them for years. Their prices are reasonable, and they do a really good job. They really care about you. They get involved with you taking your pictures, and that's the first thought here for me is that when you're getting your family portraits done professionally, if that's something you choose to do, I've seen a lot of professional family photos, and I've been to a lot of different places that will do them. A place like this,
this is new to me. I think my wife and I have gotten professional family photos taken maybe 3 times in the entire time we'd been married. So in 11 years. So this is everything you're saying is kind of new to me. And I take family photos. I am a family photographer. So I'm on the other side of this, but I don't know what you're talking about when you talk about these things. So I might ask you some questions that seem like I'm kind of playing here, but I'm not. I don't know what it's like when you say you get photos done every year. We've never done that. So everything you're saying is kind of fascinating to me, Phil. So
Well, perfect. Allow
yeah,
me to elaborate then.
please do. I would appreciate anything you could say.
What I was kind of getting at is that I've seen a lot of different kind of family portraits, and we've been to several different places, and we've settled on this one. And the reason that we go with them is because the people that work there are just very friendly, and they work very well with young kids that you want to bring in. And you end up with, usually what we'll do is some kind of a package where we'll have a pose of each kid by themselves, maybe a pose of all three kids, and then a whole family. Like, our goal is to go in there.
And it's indoor. It's not outdoor on location.
Yeah, no, it's not an on location thing.
Okay.
It's an indoor thing. They have the backgrounds, they drop the curtain.
Oh, so it's like a big old studio.
Like, yeah, they've got this one that we go to has 3 studios in it. So you can get like the plain white background, or like the graduation photo where it's nice and blue.
Yeah,
and
sure.
or a nature background with
And they got big old lights and stuff.
Yeah, they got the whole thing. Even some stuffed animals.
Yeah, I could see the appeal of that.
Yeah. What we like to do is to go in there, and when we leave, we want to have enough pictures that kind of cover everybody.
Okay.
We'd like to get a family portrait for all of us, just to have, maybe to hang on the wall. A lot of times we end up just putting one of those up, but what we're really there for is the kids' photos. Those definitely make it on the wall and make it into the scrapbooks. But we like this place because we have fun there. We get good pictures, and we can go in one time and get a whole variety of photos done all at once.
How long does it take?
The actual taking photos part, maybe 15 minutes.
Serious?
15, 20 minutes. It's not long at all. And I don't know.
Man, that is that's fast. But if it see, my thing is, whether it takes 15 minutes or an hour, if you get the results you're looking for, then the time you spend doesn't really matter. Right? I mean, that's my guess.
Well, no, I'd agree with that.
Okay.
With the catch of, as long as your kids behave when you're there.
Yeah,
that's the harder part.
That's the real trick, isn't it?
Trying to keep the young kids entertained, or occupied while you're doing the different poses and that kind of thing. But
I would imagine in 15 minutes you could get enough pictures that you could get some good smiles and poses out of the kids before they start melting down and not wanting to be there.
Usually you do. We've hardly ever had any issues with that.
Okay.
And if we have, it's because it's of an infant, not because of a kid that we can't.
Yeah.
Just kind
you
of
can bribe your oldest with a piece of candy or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll go into a few things that, to me, I don't want to say are obvious, but I'm used to them. Mm-hmm. And whereas you said you haven't done this kind of thing, so I'm thinking that there are camera dads or camera moms listening that are not familiar with this process. And so,
and the only time we've ever actually gone to a studio is when when we took a family photo of the whole family. So like mom and dad, me, you, our brothers, and our sister. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
it was probably 8 years ago.
Funny thing is, I still have that shirt that somebody decided that we were all going to wear this.
That was Adam. I think Adam picked that shirt. I don't know if I have mine. I should get it.
It's funny because
if I have it, I'm going to wear it next time we record.
I work here, in the basement at home, and it's kind of cold sometimes.
Yeah,
I'm wearing a lot of long sleeve shirts, and I pulled that one out of my closet. I know exactly it's that gray American Eagle shirt. We've all got one because we had to have it for that particular photo.
Yeah, and
that was a long time ago. Yeah, that was.
And that's the last time I was in a portrait studio.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that was before we had kids and everything. So yeah, I don't mean to get sidetracked here, but it's a foreign land to me. What you're saying about going to a studio and getting pictures?
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
A lot of places, they charge you based on how many poses you want to get printed.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or they will allow, one change of clothes or one change of outfit, something like that. It's
See,
odd.
I don't know. I would feel, I wouldn't want to, I don't know how I'd feel like that. If I went to a place and the first thing that happened was there's like rules. You can only wear one change of clothes, or you only get one or two poses or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how comfortable I would feel with that. Maybe that's fine. I could.
I've never given that much thought.
Okay.
My wife is the one that organizes a lot of this,
Hmm.
so she'll have in mind, two outfits for each kid
Okay.
that she wants, or a couple of poses that she's hoping to get. But this is what I'm used to. This is kind of the way it works,
Yeah.
as far as I understand it. Is you get, you have not a certain amount of time, but you have sort of a reasonable expectation of, you want to do, one kid sitting in a chair doing this, and then two kids laughing together or something like that. You have these ideas of what you want to get. And so the photographer will be in there, and he or she will, crouch down or get on the ground or wave a stuffed animal in the air, whatever they got to do to try to get your kids to smile or laugh and to get that pose that you're looking for. And then they'll just kind of burst away on a camera.
So you'll be hearing this click, 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 click kind of thing while
Kinda.
they're okay.
I said burst, which is actually like, the hold down the button kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more intentional than that.
Okay.
But it is kind of a spray and pray approach,
Hmm.
where you take as many as you can and hope you get something that is going to meet your client's requirements.
Yeah. I mean, when you got kids, one thing I've learned as the photographer is that every number of kids, so n number of kids requires n squared number of pictures. N plus one kids requires n plus one squared number of pictures. And so the odds that if you have three kids in your case, the odds of getting one picture are really small. If you only take one picture, it's not going to work. If you take five pictures, you might get one, maybe two kids looking good, but you have to take 20 pictures to hopefully get one where all the kids are looking nice and presentable and all that. And
Yeah, that's definitely true. And that's one of the benefits that we have now of, everything being digital now, is that it doesn't really matter how many pictures you take. The idea of being limited to a certain number of actual shots, I think that idea is gone, because it doesn't matter. Anybody that does actually charge you by the shot or give you like a 50 shot limit, that's absurd to me.
Yeah, it seems kind of backwards today anyway.
Yeah, exactly. What you would pay for is how many prints you want, what print package you want to go with when it's all over.
Oh, so the place you go, do they charge like a sitting fee, and then you buy the prints from them? Because when you write them a check, what does that check cover?
The place that we go, there is no sitting
Samsung
fee.
Pay.
What? Samsung Pay? No, it overheats, so we don't pay that way.
Okay,
great. Now you lost me.
sitting fee. Yeah, that was a terrible.
No, so
never again will I do that.
I don't think we've ever been charged a sitting fee at the place where we go, and I know that is a thing. I'm just going to throw out some random numbers, but let's say a place will charge you $50 for a sitting fee.
Sure.
And then $5 per sheet for whatever print you want after that, or something like that. That's one approach to it. What we typically do is they'll have a package deal where you get, let's say like one, I might get the dimensions on these wrong, but one, 11 by 7 and 4 8 by 10s and 16 3 by 5s and a buttload of wallets, and that's how they break it down. And then if that's like the entry package, and if you go up a step for $159.99 instead of $129.99, you'll get the calendar print, and you'll get the
Oh, sure. So
you
you
get the
don't get
coffee mug
digital
with your
versions
print.
of any of this.
You do, you
You
do.
do?
A lot of places they'll include the digital versions, which for me is a big deal, and you own the rights to those.
Do you get a
That's
lot of them?
usually get all of them.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's great. I I didn't know that was standard practice.
Well, I don't know if that's standard practice across the board, but that's
Go
what
Portrait
we,
Innovations. If
yeah.
you're listening, I like this.
Yeah, they man, we had some done at JC Penney this
Okay.
summer. I think we had a coupon there, or a Groupon, or whatever, the LinkedIn,
Yeah,
or whatever it is.
Sure.
LinkedIn. What's that thing? What's
So
the
you
other
went,
Groupon?
I don't know. I know what you're saying, but one of those deals like you enough people buy into it and you get a discount or something.
Yeah, yeah. So it's one of those things, and so we had one of those for JC Penney, and I think that with that package, it was, you buy the coupon for like $30, and it's actually a $90 package,
Mhm.
and they sell a whole bunch of them, and so they get a lot of people in there, and then they
Okay.
make money. But um, what? Yeah, that was for our daughter's first birthday, so this would have been around July, and we ended up with a smaller package than what we normally get, just because it was this particular deal that we went with. And we got like 1 or 2 8x10s and some 3x5s or 5x7s, and we ended up with digital copies, I think, of I think of all the photos. Actually, I was going to say one of each pose, but I really think we got digital copies of everything.
From JC Penney.
Yeah,
I'm impressed.
yeah. I think they would mail you a CD. No, it's crazy because some places are modern, like you wouldn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
They will email you a link to get your photos within, say, 24 hours after the shoot's done.
Because I'm used to I shouldn't say I'm used to anything because I'm not. When when we got our big family photo, the one we mentioned earlier, that must have been 8 years ago, 9 years ago. It was a long time ago. And we didn't, I don't even know if they shot it digitally, but I remember looking through a physical book of proofs when you and I were at mom and dad's house.
You are right. We did do
And,
that.
and we had to pick the photo. All of us together had to agree on one picture that we wanted. And so
Well, it sound bad or unpleasant. The idea was to get one photo. We only wanted one print in this case.
I think you're right. Yeah. And
we had,
that's, I'm
like
not trying
a
to
dozen people, and the goal was to get one wall-sized print that we could hang up for mom and dad.
right. And
the process was just laborious. It was,
yeah, we couldn't just pull up a website and flip through all the digital versions. So it's interesting to me that things have really changed over the years. And I probably sound horribly naive, but I'm serious. We don't get our portraits taken. So I don't know how this process works.
I think it's a lot of fun, and I like it. I haven't even talked about how the process of choosing your prints yet.
Mm-hmm. So, but let me back up a second. When you talk about Portrait Innovations, and I'm just using that because that's the place you happen to go. Did you choose them because of photo quality, or were there other things that you were looking for, like they're good with kids, or they make it a fun experience?
Originally, we probably chose them because of a Groupon.
Okay.
Or Living Social. That's what it is.
Okay.
That's the one.
Sure.
Probably one of those things, or a family recommendation.
Okay.
Like, I'm thinking maybe our sister went there and got some prints done or something like that. Experience overall, it was just really, really good. They didn't seem interested in their bottom line. And a couple of things that are really cool, I think one of them might blow your mind. You get the prints day.
Really?
Yes.
You walk out with the physical prints?
If you stick around, you do. If you
Phil, that blows my mind.
Yeah. If you sometimes they will, you'll go shopping and then you'll come back that afternoon and pick them up, but
Yeah.
you get the prints that day.
So they're not messing
Which is
around.
just, if you go back to when you're probably used to doing this or have done this in the past, get them developed, wait, and then you go and pick them up, or maybe they mail you the envelope, like the whole thing where you drop your film off at Walgreens and then you wait 3 or 4 days, and it was like that. But yeah, this place prints them right there. They've got a whole room full of huge photo printers, and you can watch them, and they just do the work right there, and then they hand you this big fat envelope full of prints that you just picked. And it's exciting, and it's just cool to go in there and do it all at once. It just kind of feels futuristic, and it feels fun.
Well, and what you're saying is kind of an answer to a question I've had, where how do portrait places like that stay relevant in 2018 when 20 years ago nobody had, I mean, digital cameras weren't even a thing, and just the idea of getting your picture taken was so much more difficult because it wasn't accessible in the same way it is now. So I'm wondering, how does a place stay relevant, and why would you, a father, take your family to go to a place like that when you've got a great camera, you've got a Nikon D3200, some good lenses. Why wouldn't you just take your own picture? But what you're saying is it's worth it, and there's a lot of reasons to go to an actual photo place.
Yeah, it is worth it. And one of the reasons that I think it's worth it is because you just get to let someone else do all the work for you. The hardest thing that you have to do is choose the photos that you want the prints of. You don't have to worry about getting sitting your tripod up and making sure the lighting's good. And
yeah, that's a good point.
We talked about this a while back, about how the camera dad is often left out of most photos.
Yeah, totally.
Because someone's got to have the camera, and right, in our case, it's usually the camera dad. So this gives you the chance to just not worry about any of that, be in some of the photos yourself, and just let someone else take care of that for you.
Well, and
that feels great.
So there's probably some parents listening who might be in the same boat, who have a nice DSLR or a really high-end mobile phone camera or something like that they've already spent a lot of money on. So you might have spent $500 on your Nikon or Canon camera. Why would you now go spend $200 every year on a family picture? Because 2 years you could just buy a new camera. But what you're saying is, if that's you, it's worth it to get your family photo taken by a place that they take care of all the work.
Yeah. And I think that another reason that it stays relevant, in 2018 is, again, I'm just going to keep talking about this place in particular because it's the one that we prefer.
Talk away. Yeah. And maybe they'll sponsor the show.
They certainly don't pay us, but hey, Portrait Innovations, if you're listening.
Sponsor.
The instant gratification. You get those photos that day.
That is really cool. I hadn't heard of that being done before.
You can you can do all your stuff. You can pick your pictures, go across the street, have lunch, and come back, and they're done. There's a lot to be said for that, and that takes part of the hassle out of the equation too. Because honestly, one of the things that I am always kind of struggling with is getting my pictures printed, and it's stupid. You can go to Walgreens.com, like we talked about in one episode recently. One of the best places to get your photos printed, according to Consumer Reports, is Walgreens, and it's so easy to just get some prints made. But I don't do it. I don't know why I don't do it. And what you're saying is part of what you're paying for when you go to an actual photo place is that they literally take care of everything, including they just get the prints made, and you don't have to think about any of it. And I'm starting to really see the value in what you're saying here. And maybe I'm not going to say change my mind. We have never decided not to get our photo taken.
it's just always for 11 years been one of those things that we'll get to someday. And
Yeah.
maybe someday we need to actually make that happen more often. I don't know.
Well, maybe you ought to just try it sometime, just to see what that experience is like.
Well, we kind of did.
If you like it, then make it a semi-regular thing, if that's for you.
So what we did, and I don't want to get too far off track here, but there is no track. We have no notes for this. This has been kind of a source of frustration for us the past couple of years because we've got so much money invested in our cameras, and all the money that we've spent on our cameras has come from cameras. We have almost none of our own actual money from our jobs invested in the cameras. It's all money that we make with the cameras. But despite all the thousands of dollars we have on cameras, we have almost no good pictures of our family. And it's starting to get a little frustrating. So 2 years ago, we traded family photos with a friend here in town. And I went to the Botanic Gardens. I took pictures of her and her family, and then she took pictures of us at a park, and it worked out pretty well. The next year, we actually did pay someone to do our photos. A friend of mine, my former boss, actually, but it wasn't like what you're saying. It wasn't at a portrait studio. It was out at their farm, and he's a professional photographer. And we went on location, and he brought some props, and we did an outdoor photo shoot, and we were really happy with the results. But this year, we traded photos again with my buddy Ryan. Ryan, if you're listening, thank you. That was a great experience. And we did it in within like a 20-minute window. My family got all dressed up. His family got all dressed up. We met at about 5 o'clock at this park down the road. I took pictures of his family, and just one after the other, I got all of them. Then I got him and his wife, then him and his kids, and we just cycled through several poses. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we're done. I handed my camera to him, or no, maybe he brought his, I don't remember. And we did the same thing. He, in 10 to 15 minutes, he got photos of us, a couple different poses. Bam, we're done. And the result of that shoot is the best photo we've ever taken of the four of us. And it worked out so good that we now want to do that again, where this coming fall, we're planning on doing the exact same photo swap. So that's as close as we've ever come to doing what you're describing. I don't even know how I got off on this tangent here, but that's my experience with getting family photos taken.
We've tried that, actually.
Yeah.
What we tried one year was to go to a place that had some scenery. It was actually a place I used to work. They had some landscaping on the property and a couple of ponds. One had a fountain in it. And so we figured we could stage some pretty scenic looking photos there. There's a lot of trees and some water. And, and we just took the two kids and probably some basic props, a blanket, and tried my best. I got down on the ground and I tried shooting up from out of the grass, and I tried, putting the kids up in a tree.
So was it a family photo, like of you were trying to get photos of all of you, including yourself?
No, I was just trying to do the kids, but I wanted to try this whole do-it-yourself thing, and find some place, like you were saying, you go to the Botanical Gardens. Well, that's a perfect place for that kind of thing, but you have to have someone do the photos because you can't obviously do them yourself. It doesn't work. It doesn't work well anyway if you set the tripod over there and give yourself a timer, and then you rush back over, get your family together, and pray that you're going to get something in that burst of photos. You get so much. The results are so much better when you have someone there who has the eye that you want and can watch what you're doing and just know when to take the photo.
Did it work?
Did ours work? They were okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We got a few prints made. I think they made it into one of our photo books. They turned out okay. Um, it was a little late in the day, so the sun was starting to set. There was a couple of factors like that that made it a little less than ideal, but I would
Okay.
definitely want to try it again. Um,
Okay.
I felt kind of like these are kind of photos that I would try to stage a little bit if we were on, say, a family vacation, and we've got a bunch of the cousins, our kids, and all their cousins climbing rocks or something, or fishing.
Yeah, sure,
I
sure.
don't want to stage it too much, but if you can get them all together doing one thing and then just let it happen, and you just have the good eye to get the shots and hope that you get what you want to get. I like the idea of doing that, but man, when it's our family and I want to be a part of that, I want someone else to come in there and do that work. Sometimes it's you. If we're
Yeah.
visiting you guys and down in Oklahoma, it's nice just to have you take the camera. The scenics, you know the scenery, so you know where to go, and you'll just take us to a park or
Well,
something and say, all right, go over here by these trees and just kind of do this, and then you will have the eye that we
yeah, yeah.
need, and we don't have to think about that. And that's, I don't know if I'm stressing this point too much or whatever. I sound like a little bit of my soapbox, but I just having somebody else that can do that for you, who's
Mhm.
really good at knowing what you want, so that
And
you
that
don't have to worry about it.
there's a practical element of the kids are generally more favorably disposed towards an external entity. Where if your son knows that it's dad taking photos, he's seen you take photos for his whole life, and he's not going to be on his best when there goes dad again and he's pointing the camera at me again. But if it's someone else, a third party, they're probably going to behave a little better. And I say this is how my kids are anyway. If I try and take their photos, they roll their eyes and they kind of half smile. But if I hand the camera to someone else who's not a family member, then they'll really step up their game. And if you have to pay money to do that, then that you'll get some good results for it. So that maybe it's worth the money.
Yeah, that I hadn't thought about that, but
Hey man, all kinds of good stuff. Just like this show, we made people think here at Camera Dads.
that's right.
Um, it's interesting hearing your experience from the one side of the camera, and I know what it's like on the other side of the camera. And all these things are things that my wife and I have talked about many times because we do family portraits. We don't have a studio, but we've spent a long time talking about pricing, about poses, about time, about locations, and these sorts of things. And so it's fascinating to hear from your side of the coin what it's like as the one being photographed. Excuse me.
Mm.
Um, and for instance, you talked about the prices. That was something that my wife and I discussed at length. What should our prices be? And we had no idea when we started doing this. Like 3 years ago, and we've now settled on a price that we're pretty comfortable with. And would you like to know the price?
Sure, why not?
Okay. um, so we've decided that we don't do. We'll tell you this: we don't do packages. We don't even do prints. If you get your photos taken from us, we don't do any prints, and we specifically say on our website, go to MPix or Adorama Pix. I suppose we should change that to Walgreens.
So,
um,
but what you do is you are a talented photographer with an eye for what you think people are going to want, and so your service is you would like a senior photo or
mhm,
a family portrait, and so
mhm,
you will arrange to where to go
mhm.
and take the photos, and that's it. That's the end of what you do, right?
Yeah, we don't do anything beyond that. I mean, then we edit the photos, and there's all of that stuff. But we don't do prints. We don't do we don't even do proofs. We just take the photos and deliver our final versions to the clients.
Okay.
And that thus ends the relationship that we have with the client for that transaction. There's an end point to the transaction.
And they don't get all of like every picture you shot then, do they?
So
they get the ones that you tweaked, not tweaked, sorry, not the ones that you chose and, you know, maybe highlighted.
Well, yeah, I mean, tweaked is a good
best.
word. So I shoot everything in RAW when I'm doing a family photo session, which means every photo is about 25 megabytes and has to be tweaked and has to be edited. On the last photo session, so this fall I did 2 high school senior photos and 2 family photo sessions, all formal, all paid clients. And in the 2 family sessions, I took about 1,000 photos per session, because there's kids involved, and you got to just keep that shutter clicking. For each of those, I probably delivered about 90 pictures to the clients, which some would say that's even a lot.
Both of those numbers sound like a lot to me.
Yeah. And that one of the reasons that we say we guarantee a 3-week window, where if we take your pictures on the 1st, then you'll have them by the 21st. But the reason it takes 3 weeks is the editing is probably 80% of the whole process. There's so much that happens in the editing and the culling of the photos. I mentioned earlier, if you have 3 kids, you might have to take 20 pictures. And that's my job then, to find that one good one. And there might be 3 good ones, but you, the client, you don't want to see 3 identical pictures of your kids. You want the photographer to deal with that. So we deal with that. We find the one good one in that batch and edit that one. And then we'll go to the next batch where they're sitting in a different location or whatever. But that's what we do. And for that, we charge $175. And part of that is, what do other photographers in the area charge? And what do we deliver relative to what they have? And when you come to us, we guarantee a minimum of 15 pictures for your time, or for your money. And we'll say the photo shoots typically last an hour. We'll deliver at least 15 pictures. We've never delivered fewer than like 60 pictures.
Man.
but it's a price that, and maybe you can speak to this. I was talking with a family a couple months ago about doing pictures, and my wife and I, when we started this, we did photos for free for some friends. And there's a couple families that are on our free forever list because they helped us out when we were just starting. But we decided maybe a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, that we're done with free. We're going to charge everybody now, except for those few who are grandfathered in. And I was talking to the family earlier, maybe a couple months ago, and we were talking about pictures and whatnot. And finally, we got to the issue of price. And she said, "So what do you charge?" And I said, $175. And she paused. Her eyes got kind of big.
Oh.
And she goes, "Wow, $175." And I didn't back down. I didn't compromise. I was just like, "Yep, yeah, that's what we charge. $175. And she thought about it, and she goes, "Well, we'll have to save some money for it, but we'd like you to do our photos." Okay.
Wow.
Problem solved. And if she would have said no thanks, we would have said, "Great, that's fine too." We have to charge money for what we're worth, and for the time that it takes us to do this. And that's why when you were talking about pricing earlier, it's fascinating how this all works out. What's a family willing to pay, and what's a photographer willing to provide? And at the end, what does the client get for their money?
Yeah.
It sounds like you're getting a product that you're really happy with, and it's worth your money.
We are. Yeah, unless you've got, that friend or that family member who is the really good photographer and you're on their free list, you are going to have to pay
Mhm.
for these family portraits. And what we typically do is we go to a place like this, and what they usually have are these packages. Like,
Mhm.
okay, the base level package is, let's say, $99, and you get so many of this size and so many of this size, and then you jump up to 199 and 299, and um, usually we're somewhere in the middle of there, depending on if it's the first kid or the third kid or whatever the situation might be. But it's somewhere in the middle, a few $100s at most, let's
Mhm.
say, once every year or two, and it's worth. Some people might think that's a lot of money, and some people might think that that's cheap. I don't know. But in my mind, that's a reasonable amount of money to spend every year or two in order to get those photos that you will hang on your wall, that you will hand out. That's another reason we do them, is because we will put them in, not like Christmas cards. We haven't done that for a couple of years, but like
Yeah.
the next time that we see any family members at any kind of a get together, we'll bring our big old envelope full of pictures and say, all right, we just had our
Mhm.
family photos done this year. Okay, Gammy and Papa, here's the photos we did. Now you can pick some of this and some of this. And then we go to all the aunts and uncles, and
I remember picking photos out of your kids to have, and it's really cool.
yeah, and
I enjoy
that's
it.
that's part of the fun for us, is to get all those prints. And now, I do want to mention, though, that it's very easy to get sold more than you need.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, so let's talk about the selection process a little bit at a place like this. And I think this is pretty standard across the board, no matter where you go. Let's just say you take 200 photos during
Mhm.
your session. Then what you do is you sit down at a computer, and someone will kind of go through and kind of quickly sometimes toss out the ones that they think are no good. You will pick out the ones that, you'll help them toss out ones that are no good. And then you'll be down to, a few dozen that are pretty good, that are what you want. But you only, the package that you're getting is only going to be so many sizes or so many prints. And so
Oh,
you want to make sure
yeah,
that you
sure.
get, um, oh, I really like that one because her smile is so good there, but her hair's a little off. But at this other one, her smile's a little
Mhm.
bit more goofy, but her hair is perfect.
That's funny because this,
I just,
what you're saying, this is the same thing that we do when we're looking through our clients' photos to figure out what we deliver. And without the client there, we have to make that decision. And what we've realized is that if there's those two photos where one, she's smiling great, but her hair is off, and the other, her hair is perfect, but her smile isn't good, the client never knows that there's two photos. And so,
yeah. So
and so
that's interesting.
we just and I used to be terrible at this. My wife is really good about saying, look, just make a decision because you can't go wrong with either one. Whereas my instinct would be give them both. But part of our job is to take care of that. So we don't want to overwhelm the client with 800 pictures. We want to select the ones that showcase the best of that family. And we're making these decisions. It feels kind of weird because we're holding back, but we're not holding. We're really trying to present the best.
Man,
And
I see how that can be tough, because you're really trying to do them a service
yeah,
by not, man, it's backwards.
it's totally backwards.
Your goal is to not hand them 800 photos.
No, I don't want. I
Man,
want to hand
I
them.
sure wouldn't pay somebody $175 to take 800 professional photos and just dump them on me.
Yeah.
I absolutely understand the value there,
Mhm.
because they're paying for your time and your knack for knowing what makes a really good photo.
Yeah, and we when I go through this, let's use the number 800. I'll go through and in Lightroom, I'll flag the ones I think are keepers and reject a bunch that I think are terrible. But there's so many that are in the middle that could go either way. So I'll go through them all once, and that takes a long time. And then I'll go through them all again and all again. And there's often like 4 separate passes. Then my wife will go through them at near the end, and she'll make some suggestions, and we keep paring it down and down and down till we have this final selection that's like 8% of the original. And that's sometimes it's 5% of the original number. But we feel like it's a reasonable number, and it really showcases the best of the family and our best work too. But really our goal is to give the family the photos that they're really going to like, and that now that every photo that you get is the best of the best of the best, sir, with honors, like they would say in Men in Black. Whereas what you're saying is you kind of have to make those decisions, and when you do it on the fly and you end up with more than what you think you might need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you end up, because there's a fun to that process, but there's also the unwanted pressure to that process.
Oh yeah,
and that might be part of their business model. I get it if it is, but you know that you can't sit there for 6 hours and go through these photos.
Yeah.
And you know that you want a couple of you want one that looks like that, and you want one that looks like that. And that process of choosing between the 2 photos that are nearly identical, and that's all on you. I mean, the photographer will sit there with you during all of this, and they will help out quite a bit. As far as, they can crop them and they can rotate them and they can do that kind of thing. But a lot of times that final decision about which one you want to go with is up to you. And what ends up happening, or what can end up happening, is you might end up keeping both, and I think this just takes experience to get over this part, is that you will have 2 photos that may be similar, but they're definitely different photos or different poses. But you just so badly want to keep them both because they're just so good. And then what happens is you go home with this pile of 100 prints in all these different sizes.
Yeah.
Go through all your family, so you keep what you want, you give everybody else what they want, and you're left with 30, 40 prints left over that no one took because you thought, because you're under pressure at the time to get it done.
Sure. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's
the make you spend more than you were planning on. That's one of the ways they kind of get you.
And I'm sure that's part of their business model, and that's fine. They're not forcing you. And it is up to you to decide what you want. But it's what you're describing is, again, it's kind of fascinating to me to hear how it works from the other side of things. We thought about doing packages like that. And when we originally set up the business, which is called Stevens Creek Photography, named after Stevens Creek, just outside of Lincoln, Nebraska. When we originally set that up, we were going back and forth. Do we offer packages? Do we offer pricing levels? And we finally said, no, we're just going to do one. We're going to limit what we do. Family photos, kid photos, and high school seniors. No weddings, no parties, no events. Limit everything to just that. And we have one price. And we originally offered, for that one price, 10 photos. And then each additional photo was like $10 per photo or something like that. And even that got to be just kind of tedious. So we said, forget it. Well, one price, $175, and we'll guarantee at least 15. And if you get 30, you can have 30. 50, that's fine. But it's taken so much pressure off of us because we have a family and we both have full-time jobs, and we can't be messing with pricing structures. We just got to keep it simple from our end. And that's also why we don't make a career out of this.
Well, so it's not your full-time job.
No, it's not. It's
If
a
it
side
were,
hobby.
then
We'd be broke.
you'd be sitting there for 8 hours a day,
Yeah.
2 hours a day, going through people's photos and
Yeah.
doing all that stuff. But
One thing that's interesting to me is something you never mentioned once was gear. So you didn't choose a place because they shot full frame Canon, or because they used a 70-200 2.8, or because they had 3 external speed lights. You talk about all these other things that have nothing to do with gear. And they're so often people get caught up in discussions of gear. And I'm sure Portrait Innovations has really good gear, but you don't need to make that the focus of what it, like if you're a parent and you want to take better photos, you probably can already do that with the gear you have. And if you're going to go to a place to get your photos done, gear really isn't something that should be an issue. You should be looking at things like, do they make it fun? Are they good with kids? Are they flexible with my schedule? Can we, are they going to make us buy a minimum number, or whatever it is? All these things we've been talking about. But never once did you mention we go to Portrait Innovations because they shoot Nikon.
I never thought about that, and that
Hey
doesn't
man,
matter one bit to me.
we're blowing minds all across the internet here.
It doesn't matter at all.
No,
The
it
things that
doesn't.
matter to me are that it's easy to do. That generally speaking, we have fun when we're there doing it. We get our prints quickly. They're great. They're good enough to hand out to people and to put on the wall. And we also get digital copies of everything that they shoot.
Do you get an we really got to wrap this up. We've been going a long time, but when you say digital copies, are they low res sized for Facebook, or are they full on high res that you could just print yourself?
They're higher res.
Okay.
And that's not really a gear related issue, but that's the only technical thing that I would ever be hesitant about with something is they'll say, we will send you digital versions, but they don't say what. And there's part of me that really wants to know, okay, well, does that mean, what's the resolution? Are you talking about you're going to send me thumbnails, or you're going to send me,
a big old watermark across the picture?
Right. Or is it going to be something I can put on Facebook, but not something I could print?
Yeah.
You and I talked a while back about how many megapixels you need to do a good print and that kind of thing. But I want to make sure that I've never really questioned it, but it's always in the back of my head that when I get these digital prints from whatever place it is, are they good enough for me to use as backups for me? If I need to do more prints down the road. That's the only thing that I would really consider on kind of a gear / technical level.
Well, and to me, being on the photographer side of things, what's more important to me is building the relationship with the client. And if I feel like a client will not want to work with me because I'm nickel and diming them on what versions of digitals they get, or I'm putting a watermark on, or I say you can have some digitals but you can't print them, or things like that, then I feel like I'm not providing the client with the best experience, and I'm not really putting the relationship with the client at the front and center. But if we're fair about our prices, if we're honest about what we do, and we do a good job, then they'll come back next year, and that will be a recurring source of revenue, as opposed to I'll squeeze more money out of them by placing all these limitations and whatnot. And I see more photographers doing this nowadays, where more photographers are comfortable handing digital pictures to clients. For a while, it seemed like photographers are really reluctant to do that, because what if the client goes and gets them printed on their own?
Mm-hmm.
And my response, again, as someone who's not a full-time photographer, my response is, so what?
Yeah.
You might have lost out on a little bit of money when the photographer, or when the client goes and gets an additional 8x10 printed, but you've gained a really good relationship with that client, and they're going to want to come back to you in the future.
Yeah, and that's more important. And
Yeah,
that's one other point that I thought of real quick is when we have gone to Walgreens to get a reprint of something,
Mhm.
every so often we'll have to sign a form that says, yes, we have the rights to this photo,
Oh, sure.
because that's kind of one of the gotchas, or it used to be. It sounds like it's from what you're saying, it's not so much anymore, but it kind of used to be where maybe you'd get some photos, but not the rights to the photos,
Yeah.
or you'd get a link to a website where they have for the photos, but then you have to pay them to download them,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that. But you that's kind of goes along with the resolution thing, is for me just making sure that when I walk out of there, I paid them to do what they do, and I have a good relationship with them. I've got the prints, and I've got the full size digitals that I own.
Yeah. That's
And
really good.
and then that's it. It's, I will go back to you 1,000 times. That's it.
And
That's simple.
any portrait photographers out there, listen to what Phil's saying. He's wise in these ways. So, well, what do you think? Have we explored this issue pretty thoroughly?
I think so.
I
Yeah.
think so too. This is a good episode. No notes, just a topic, and I like it. I think this is a good format.
Yeah, I think this was pretty cool. I kind of like this. And I don't think we should wait another 2 months before we get back in here.
No, let's do it again. I'm gonna do a quick tease for our next show for anyone interested. I'll be I don't want to say reviewing, but Phil and I will be discussing. It'll be a gear show actually. We'll be discussing this camera here, which is the Fuji X100F. And as you can see, it's a pretty tiny camera. It's a little pocket camera, but it's got some big stuff packed in there, and we'll be talking about that camera. And if you have any questions about that camera, let us know, and we'll talk about it on the next show.
A Fuji.
A Fuji, yes,
Is that like a Polaroid?
kind of, yeah, except fewer letters in the name.
Okay. Well, I'm very curious. I'm very excited to talk about this camera.
Me too.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a whole new, man, that never used a Fuji before.
When I come up for our Uncle Pete's wedding, you can play with it as much as you want.
Okay, I will do that.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, yeah, thanks, Simon. This has been fun, and hope you guys enjoyed the show. And we will see you in about a month for the next episode of Camera Dance.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye.